Today we're going to be breaking down the best route running from the NFL Week 1. So football is back, you guys, and we're going to be talking about some of the best routes that I saw this past Sunday. So let's start with this first route here from Cooper Kupp. He's going to be running this like deep 15-yard out, and he is able to stop on a dime, get a ton of separation from this DB who is an outside leverage zone coverage, which is a very, very tough look to run an out route against. So let's play this thing full speed, and then we'll break it down. So Kupp comes off the ball, and something that I want you to pay attention to here is the frequency of three areas of his specific route. And by frequency, I mean keeping things the same. So if we have to run a 10-yard out route, 12-yard out, 15-yard out, and we have a DB who's outside leverage and in zone, obviously his goal being outside leverage is to not let anybody get to the outside. He wants to prevent the deep ball because he's in zone coverage, obviously. Like let's say, for example, it's cover 3, right? You have this single high safety. You have a DB who's dropping everything. His goal is to keep everything in front of me because I'm in zone, and my zone is the deep third. But also, like we said, he's outside leverage. So that's kind of tough when we have to run an outside breaking route, like an out route. But remember, guys, this DB is always going to be threatened by a fade. So I'm not going to try to just take off and go run behind him, because the second we just take off the ball and try to run behind this guy, get to this area called the blind spot, this DB is going to widen, keep his leverage, and when I run my out route, I'm not going to have that much space for my quarterback to lead me. So what we have to do is we have to attack his inside shoulder and inside hip, and when I do that, I have to do something called sell vertical, or sell the fade, or sell the 9. My goal is to make this DB think that we are running deep, so he will flip his hips, aka open the gate, which means we want his hips facing the opposite end zone, and then we put the brakes on and slip back underneath him, right? So going into this break, it's not necessarily about running as hard as you possibly can to sell the fade, because remember, at the break point, what do we have to do? We have to be able to change direction, and that requires a lot of balance, and that requires a lot of stability with my lower half. If you are running all the way to this break point like it's a 100-meter dash, and you're running as hard as you can, gritting your teeth, going, pumping your arms, you're not going to be able to change direction, you guys, or at least it's going to take you a while to change direction. But I'm not saying to run slow either. I'm saying to maintain a speed frequency, which means that from the start of the route, I want you to pay attention to this. Cooper Kupp's speed does not change. There is not a change in his speed until he puts the brakes on to drop. That is what sells vertical. Now, there's also a frequency that we want to pay attention to, and that is called your strides. So remember, there's 3 frequencies you want to pay attention to: speed, but also his strides. Look at his stride lengths from this top of the route. Nothing changes. He does not break stride. He's able to drop literally right on a dime in perfect stride frequency and perfect speed frequency. And then last but not least, you guys, it's all about body language. You got to make sure that you have this forward lean with your upper half. You are not raising your chest up. Your eyes are not turning to the brake a second before we need them to. Everything needs to be a fade until it is not a fade. And that's what gets you separation. Again, guys, it's not about running as hard as you possibly can. It's about maintaining your frequency. Now, when Cooper Kupp puts the brakes on, obviously because we have a DB who's outside leverage, we're not able to get over the top of him. They call that stacking the defender. So what we have to do is we have to slip underneath him. So in order to slip underneath him, we have to make sure that we are dropping my pad level, aka dropping my hips, dropping my body weight, my center of gravity, however you want to think of it. So right at this break point, you see how he drops on this inside foot. We call this the trigger step. Now, against more talented DBs, you guys, it's not necessarily just about dropping your hips and that guarantees you separation. We got to eliminate wasted time and wasted steps at the top of the break. So when he drops into this thing, he drops on that inside foot. They call it the trigger step. That's what gets him low enough to be able to decelerate. I would say he's probably a little bit high for my liking here. I think to be able to get a little bit, you should try to shoot to get a little bit lower if you are a wide receiver, like probably 90 degrees with your legs, like 90-degree position. Legs are almost like a parallel squat in a sense. But when he drops, the second and third step is what can eliminate wasted steps. You drop on your inside foot. Your second step needs to pivot almost at a 45-degree angle, because what that pivot of that step will do is that will start to turn your hips, because it's all about being how quickly can I get my hips out of this break. Like there's a cone right here. How quickly can I get my hips around the cone? And then that pivot step will allow your third step, I call it the hook step, to hook around, and you could push off of that to get out in 3 steps minimum, right? So 3 steps, I should say maximum. So that is a textbook deep 15-yard out versus this outside leverage zone coverage DB. We're going to play it full speed one more time. Most important things to focus on, guys, is the frequency, speed, stride, body language, and then being able to get out in little amount of steps possible. So we're going to be looking at this router at the top of the screen from CD Lamb. He's going to be running a fade route. Dak Prescott throws one of literally the best throws I've ever seen here. But again, this is just enough to get him separation, and that's why I wanted to include this, because obviously CD Lamb is very, very good off the line. Now, before we get into this though, fellas, if you are a quarterback or wide receiver watching this video and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches, we are going to be coming out to 15 different cities across the U.S. for 2-day long QB and wide receiver training camps this offseason, you guys. So, guys, check out that very first link in the description below if you would like to sign up to train with us. We are going to be coming out to San Francisco, Orlando, Phoenix, Charlotte, Austin, Las Vegas, Seattle, Chicago, Newark, Birmingham, Houston, Boston, Columbus, Boise, and Los Angeles. So, guys, you want some more information, you want to sign up to train with us, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to have you there. Let's get back to this video. So now let's take a look at this writer from CeeDee Lamb. So he uses something called a split release. Now, when you have a quarterback who is talented, and guys, say what you want about Dak Prescott, the dude just got paid a truckload of money, and if you're starting in the NFL, you could pretty much do whatever you want with the football. Like, if you give him a step, he should be able to complete it. Now, maybe not every quarterback, but like, honestly, guys, like, you watch I don't know if any of you have ever been privileged enough to be on the field with an NFL quarterback. The dudes can throw the ball wherever they want. And if we could give him just a step of separation when we have a talented dude back there throwing me the ball, it's easy work, right? So that's where your release comes into play. So a great release to kind of get a DB to freeze off the ball. And you see CeeDee Lamb do this release a lot. I want you to pay close attention to this type of release anytime you're watching a Cowboy game throughout this season. And it's called a split release. So a split release is exactly how it sounds. You were just essentially like splitting your feet. Some people call it a come to balance release. But the foot that is up in your stance, you see how CeeDee Lamb has like a stance switch? A lot of older school wide receiver coaches will always say like, oh, like this example, like this guy at the bottom of the screen. You see how his inside foot is up? That's totally fine. It's more so like a preference thing. When you get press coverage, receivers will do this because they want to work a release that they're comfortable with. He may be more comfortable with the split release with his right foot up, or it may be based off of step timing, because some offenses will do like a 2-step slant. You can't run a 2-step slant with your inside foot up. You have to have your outside foot, so you could take 1 step and then bam, break off the outside foot for the 2nd step. So it's one of those 2 reasons, but obviously this is press coverage, so he's doing it off a preference to work a specific release. So that split release, your front foot essentially goes out and your back foot goes up. So you come to balance. Both feet hit the grass at the exact same time. Now, the reason why we do this is kind of like twofold, right? So you hit this split release. The goal is to freeze the DB's feet, but also be able to react off of the DB. Because like CeeDee Lamb may do this split release, so he'll split like this, and let's say that DB like jumps to the outside and tries to take away the outside release. Like, he really jumps. We could easily, because both feet are in the grass, react off of that. We could put the brakes on with the outside foot and take the inside release and work to stack him. Or we could split, we kind of stop his feet, he hesitates, and then it is just simply a foot race to the outside. And again, all we need is a step on this dude for a quarterback. So this is a great ball too, obviously. Could he have gotten more separation? Yeah, probably. But I think, again, all we need is a step. Just give my quarterback a chance to give me a good ball so I can ultimately make a play. Now, this is another route from the Rams-Lions game. Honestly, guys, there wasn't a ton of routes. Like, most of the routes were from this specific Rams-Lions game. But they were good routes. I think they're great routes to be able to showcase to you guys. As always, fellas, if you ever see a route, especially on Sundays, Saturdays, and you want us to break it down, you want us to make a video on it, you'd like to see it, feel free to send it to us or just tag us in a video on any social media platform, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all that. We always appreciate it. You guys literally make this channel. So if you see stuff that you want us to break down, we'd really appreciate you sending it in. We're going to try to do a video like this for every single week of the NFL season. So this is like kind of a stop and go route here from Jameson Williams, and this is a go-ahead touchdown that the Lions got before it ultimately went to overtime. But this is a great route, and I think especially with his type of speed, it makes it very, very easy. As long as we get a DB to hesitate on the first move, we could easily take the top off this defense and get around him and get behind him. So that's what I want to showcase on this. So anytime we do a stop and go, it is very, very important that when I'm doing my stop, I have to actually decelerate myself and stop. And I know that seems pretty self-explanatory, but I was watching a college game this past week. It was Colorado, Nebraska, and Travis Hunter ran this same exact route and got locked up bad. And then he was complaining that he didn't get the ball. It's like, dude, you got locked up. Like, why would we throw you the ball? And the reason why he got locked up is because instead of decelerating on the stop break, like you see how Jameson Williams really drops his pad level, steps hard, and he stops for a second. What Travis Hunter did is that he got into this break and he just did a little chatter of his feet and a chatter of his hands. But there was never a complete stop of his momentum. And that's not going to draw a disciplined DB down, you guys. When you just chatter your feet like this, but you're drifting upfield, that DB is going to be able to settle. How we're able to stop myself is by actually dropping my weight. Think about that Cooper Kupp example in that very first route that we went over. Going into this break, what does he do here? He steps hard, and you see how he's dropping. Fellas, you want to try to, again, get to a 90-degree position with your lower body, and a position I tell my receivers to is take your chest and try to touch it to your quad. If you could drop your center of gravity and drop your pad level like that, you are going to decelerate. That's the whole purpose of dropping your weight and dropping your hips in the first place, so I could stop and be able to make a sharp cut. And that drop of your weight is what will get this DB to hesitate. Because remember, if I'm pushing up into this route and I'm selling vertical like I should be and then I drop, no DB wants to get embarrassed like that. Every DB is a little bit anxious to try to drive on a ball, get a pick, because if he were to pick this thing off, that's a pick six, right? So that drop of your weight is what gets him to just simply like kind of hesitate, stop his feet, however you want to think of it, and then we could separate. And notice how when Williams does this, notice how he's not looking back for the ball right away. Something a lot of young receivers do is that going into a double move, they'll drop their hips, they get that DB to hesitate, then they're looking back for the ball right away. And guys, when you're running with your head back, the quarterback is trying to throw you to a spot, and that's going to make it tougher to catch up to that spot. So make sure we keep that head down. Don't look back for that ball until we got about 2 feet of separation, or obviously that's like kind of a case-by-case basis. If it's a little bit tighter of separation, I would say keep your head down for about 3 to 4 steps, then start to look back for that ball, especially if your quarterback can put that thing out there. But that is a very, very good rider from Jameson Williams, getting this DB to drop his hips by decelerating and then keeping that head down to accelerate and take the top off that defense.